Let me perhaps tell you a different way, and I borrow this from my friend Rumi. So one day a chicken and a camel get together and they have a great time. The camel says, why don't you come to my house? I'll make some food and you and I can sit and eat. And the chicken says, fine, that's great. And he goes to the camel's house, they sit and they have a great time, great food. And it's customary in the Middle East that if someone invites you to their house, you have to pay it forward, which means that you invite them back. So a few days pass by, the chicken texts the camel and says, why don't you come to my house? Okay. So the moment the camel sets foot in the chicken's house, the house gets destroyed. So what you have is chicken is very tiny, camel is huge. Because chicken is tiny, lives in a very tiny house. Because camel is huge, lives in a big house. Chicken, of course, is far too stupid to recognize all of this, so invites the camel in. Now, the point of the story is the following. Ordinary human beings are like chickens. People like Jesus Christ, Malcolm X, Mahatma Gandhi, Moses, Muhammad, the Buddha, they're like camels. Someone like Jesus can invite you to his house, and you can have a great time with him. But should you invite him to your house, there's a good chance he will destroy the place you live. Now, you can look at the house metaphorically, and you can look at the house literally. Metaphorically means the following. Let's say you are a great teacher, and I come to your house, and you feed me, and once in a while you throw some nuggets of wisdom out there. And I feel very comfortable, so much so that I invite you to my house. Now, because you're a good teacher, because you value your time, because you know exactly what it is that you want and what it is that you want to do, when you come to my house, you strip me down, at least you try to. All of a sudden I realize I don't like my wife as much, I don't like my kids as much, I don't like my job as much, I don't like me as much. And all of a sudden I realize I just invited you for a cup of coffee, and now my entire life is destroyed. So the less advanced the teacher is, the better it works for us. One of the things I had failed to mention about the Upanishads, the word Upanishad means sitting at the feet of your teacher. Now, when you just look at the feet, it's kind of like when God goes to the mountain and all of a sudden Yahweh says, yo, what are you doing here? Take off your sandals. That when you wear your shoes, you go to the bathroom with it, you go here with it, you go there with it. This is sacred grounds. So you need to really just remove your shoes. You need to some extent, remove the legs with which you walk in the physical world. Sitting at the feet of your teacher means the following. If you examine where you take your body with your legs, you walk on dirt, you walk on dust, that's where the student belongs. The student ultimately must feel as if he or she is below dirt or below dust. They mean nothing. They have zero value. The only value a student has is the value the teacher gives him or her. That's it. Now, you're not going to humiliate yourself or humble yourself or to sit at the feet of your teacher if you don't like, i.e. love your teacher. Because there's going to be a great amount of sacrifice on your part, on the part of the student. The teacher has nothing to give or nothing to sacrifice except time and energy. The student has to sacrifice time, energy, and the life that he or she has built. And that's too much. And the only way you can give everything up is when you love them. And it happens in ordinary relationships. You know, you're with someone, you've been married with them for about 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you have like 50 kids, and all of a sudden you fall in love with another human being. And the moment that happens, 20 years of history becomes irrelevant. You have children, they become irrelevant. You have a job, that becomes irrelevant. That particular narrative does not exist here in the West. And so even though I think these stories are, when you hear them, they're very exotic and interesting and intense, and you say, well, I want one of those. The truth is, you shouldn't be asking for those things because that's not part of this culture. I think this culture is good for people like Eckhart Tolle, like Jordan Peterson, like Dr. Phil, because all these people are about quick fixes. America is very secular, it's very meaty, it's very physical, and most of the issues and the emotions that we have are physical. I don't know if you've read, say, some of the books in the Old Testament. So what you have is, like they say, Joseph was walking and there's the sheep over there and the cow over there and a church over there. And you realize that the town in which Joseph lives, there are three pieces of advertisement. The sheep, the cow, and the church. Sheep, you see sheep herders. you see family people. And so your concept of happiness, what it means to be a human being, is very, very simple. Now, when you go to New York, for example, you don't have just 3 pieces of advertisement. And those pieces of advertisement don't connect you to the spiritual or the emotional world. It's about pizza, staying up, drinking, smoking, and having fun. And you realize ultimately we are the advertisement that our culture, society sells to us. You don't have the patience to become like a Rumi. We don't have the narratives that made St. John the Cross, St. John the Cross. It doesn't work that way. If you want to fix some issues in your life, you need to listen to Oprah Winfrey and read some of the novels that are bestsellers on New York Times. If you want an overhaul, a complete transformation of your life, my recommendation would be, well, I wouldn't recommend it really, but you gotta just pack up and leave. And sometimes you can take them literally, sometimes you can take them metaphorically. If that's a little difficult to grasp, let me give it to you this way. This is just a hypothetical. Imagine for a moment that I'm a teacher of sorts, and imagine you've become interested. Now, I have to know the product I'm going to work with, and the product is you. Now, who are you? Well, you are a 40-year-old American, lived in America. I look at America, it's a secular culture. You have all sorts of advertisements. Now, you also have certain emotional narratives. They go back to your parents, siblings. You've also been in about 5, 10, 15, 20 different relationships. This is just a hypothetical, okay? So you have all these scars. You have a very, very rich past, some negative, some positive. Now, I see that you've shown interest. My problem now is, okay, she wants my merchandise. She wants what I have. Well, there are going to be parts of you, like the farmer story in the New Testament, that when seeds are given to you, you're just going to walk all over them. I don't want that to happen. There are going to be certain other parts of you where seeds are going to be given, but your life is way too busy, and so they're going to get destroyed. There are going to be certain other parts of you that are very receptive, but you have the human element, you have forgetfulness, you have sloth, you have just the busyness of life. And then my task is, okay, how do I get rid of all the distractions in her life? I'm going to invite you to the office. I'm going to make you a cup of coffee. I'm going to entertain you. If I like you and trust you, which these days are going to be very, very tough, I say, you know what, I'm having some friends over, my family is coming. Why don't you come to the house, get to know my family, my parents and all that. And you feel a little comfortable when you come. It's interesting for you. And when you leave, you say, Amir, thank you, it was fun. Can we do it again? See, these are baits I'm throwing at you. And then I text you again saying, yeah, come over. Every time you say no, it means that you're preferring someone else or something else over my invitation. And that's a negative mark for you. I'm not going to text you anymore. Let's say every time I text you, invite you, you say yes. Eventually what's going to happen is you're going to enjoy the conversations, you're going to enjoy the presence of other people in the room, for example. And then you're going to go to your own life and hang out with your own people, only to realize you don't like the people in your life. In fact, you're beginning not to like your life. You only begin to like yourself when you're in my house, in the office, in the classroom. Again, remember, this is hypothetical. There comes a point where you say to me, Amir, you know, I don't know what's happening. My life is meaningless. The only place I can kind of find some relevance and meaning, some comfort, is when I come to your class or when I come to your house. That you want to occupy every space in which I am. Now, I don't need to be in the classroom. Once in a while, it's a Monday morning, you're walking around, see whether the room is unlocked, you sit here and you begin to imagine and visualize and fantasize. Okay? That connects you to 5 years of being in the classroom, 5 years of being at the house, conversations. And as these forces begin to grow inside you, you're not just going to like me, you're going to love me. And sacrifice at this stage for you are going to be very, 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 very easy. It's going to be easy while you're there. The moment you go home, you begin to reflect. And Martin Luther once had argued around the 15th century that reflection is the whore of Athens. That you're going to say, well, why does he have so much power over me? I'm an American. I'm an individual. I have autonomy. It's my life. I'm not going to allow him to run my life. So there is this part of you that wants to kind of rationalize the whole thing, justify, why you want to walk away. There's this other part of you that says, well, let me just continue doing this, see where it ends up. That's one way of moving out. In other words, the only way that you can be receptive to the ideas of Buddhism or Hinduism is by really leaving your culture behind. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to be Persian or you're going to be Hindu. What's going to happen is once you have a certain amount of understanding, you're going to go back to your life. And you're going to once again bring out your own culture, but you're going to approach your culture differently. You're going to approach your historical narratives or emotions differently. You're going to look at your parents differently. You're going to look at sex differently. You're going to look at everything differently. There is nothing wrong with being American. You just need the proper tools to use well what this culture has to offer you. One of the nice things about immigrants is that they come to America and they take advantage of the resources. America is not good for Americans, but it's really good for immigrants, because immigrants come from nothing. And they work really hard, they make some money, they save that money, and they buy themselves and their kids. They make their lives a bit more comfortable. And they don't have emotional scars the way Americans do. And so once you have the tools, then you can go back and, just be the way that you are. But now you're going to see your life differently and approach it differently.